All right, good morning. How's everybody doing? We're good? Now listen, you will eventually be on camera, so you gotta make sure you're interacting because, we're on camera, and then we're gonna make sure that, we can add you guys and have you on camera too. So we'll make sure, you're focusing and doing all the things. I can't get off the stage and do proximity, but I have a camera. So that's the goal there. All right. So you're here from creation to curation, podcasting in your classroom, getting a podcast set up. My name's Eric Verno. I'm one of the hosts of the podcast PACT pod that we run in Pennsylvania. And we're more famous out of the country than we are in the state is always the joke we like to make based on our analytics. So it's always a fun time. And now, not here present, but back in Pittsburgh, 11 a.m.-ish there. So Dom Salvucci is my other co-host.
Hello, everybody.
All right. Oh, you got a high. Look at that. They're ready for you. All right. It must be some, I don't know, Broncos better than the Steelers. I don't know.
Steeler fans.
And then with us today, just a Vivacity Tech. If you've not visited their booth, they're phenomenal. And they're starting a podcast. So Nikki is with us. Nikki, introduce yourself.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. As Eric said, my name is Nikki Acevedo. I'm the Instructional Tech Manager at Vivacity. Super excited to be here to talk a little bit about our podcast, but to be a host on this podcast. A guest on this podcast today.
You're a guest host. It's all the same.
Yes.
Listen, you get paid as much as we do, so it's all good. All right. So what we like to do is we like to go behind the scenes. So this is like the Wizard of Oz. You're seeing the back end. All right. So when starting out and talking about this, we do have some things. If Dom, if you want to pull up the presentation there, if you want to run that.
Yeah.
And then, speak what in the room? A little louder, Dom.
Okay, sorry.
Well, it's being pumped. It's going through my sound, so we might have to check and see with the sound people outside about it, but theoretically it should go through. So.
Can you hear me now?
Where's our helper? What's that? Oh, you can't hear him there? Dom, talk again.
Can you hear me now?
So maybe go again.
Okay. I'm going to pull up the...
Is that better? You can hear on that side, but can't hear over here. All right. There's supposed to be a sound person in the hallway. Where's our person? Up at the door. Excuse me. Would you be able to get the person? All right.
I'm going to run off of the camera.
Can you get the sound person real quick? All right, we'll get that figured out.
Okay. For those people that can hear me, we have...
Does she know who to ask? They're supposed to be right outside. All right, so hey, the fun of running a live podcast during a session. So anyway, hopefully StreamYard doesn't crash like the Zoom crashed yesterday. All right, I figured they set the bar well for us. If you were here for the main stage opening keynote yesterday. So yeah, we're gonna have a little bit of that. And the camera died. All right.
I'll let people have some M&Ms. Snack on the M&Ms while you're waiting for the technical issues to be.
All right. So we always joke about our virtual green room and that we don't really have food like you have in a real green room. So Dom brought virtual M&Ms. Yeah. So anyway, the guy's a prankster. So, but I want to talk about the beginning because really when you're talking about a presentation, you're talking about kind of the analysis or the paralysis by analysis piece, right? And how we all struggle with that at times in what we're doing. And go to the next slide, Dom. Oh, we got your picture in there. Oh, all right. Go back. All right, so you gotta love AI, and the AI generated. So I was using Microsoft Designer. So of course, I'm from York, Pennsylvania, home of Harley. So I have a Harley Davidson, got the beard, the hat, and of course I'm with PACT, so that was mine. Then I made Dom's, he gets annoyed at me, I make some fun ones for him, and then I say that we're gonna use these. So his love of Apple, we always go back and forth, Microsoft, Apple. So that's his image created. And what did you use to make yours?
I also used that app.
Oh yeah, Designer.
I did.
Yeah.
I asked it to give me curly-ish hair, and I feel like my signature are hoop earrings, and so this is what popped out. So it said, it looks nothing like me, but I'll take it.
All right, so your little AI speech. So on the next slide, we talk about just the process that we took. All right, and as we're talking, as you have questions, throw up the hands. We do have microphones, just like in the classroom. I thrive on interruption. It helps my ADD keep me settled in the room with the kids. And so talking about that concept, we looked at a lot of different things. Our goal was to do a video podcast. We wanted to stream live. We wanted to stream to several areas. So a lot of schools are using the OBD Studio software because it's free.
OBS.
Right, OBS Studio software. And it's free, but the back end setting up all of your screens takes a long time. So with StreamYard, along this bottom row here, they give you the presets. So as Dom pulled up the schedule of events we have for today, there was an automatic where it put all the people on the side and your viewing screen popped up. You can go through and say, we want us on top of the slideshow, kind of like what you're used to seeing with like WeVideo, maybe PowerPoint Live, right? So you can have that look here. All right, then we can go through and say, just show that presentation and none of us on the screen. So you could talk over the slide. And then you can add in, they have the ability to edit and create a couple new ones. So we were just playing around with, the main speaker would be like by themselves, the other two on the side. All right, and again, just kind of bouncing it down below. Now, in OBS Studio, you have to set this up for every stream you're doing, and the top row, you don't get that as like a starter. You're building everything from scratch. So a friend of mine who's done several years of using OBS switched over to StreamYard, where we first heard about it, and he said hours of time before every podcast would be spent on just getting all of those scenes correct, lined up properly. StreamYard handles it very simply, very quickly.
It allows you to work on the fly, which is fantastic.
Yes, sir.
So do you use a switcher, or does this replace like an ATM?
We're literally one HDMI cable, and everything's running through. So you don't have a switcher.
No macros?
Nope. No. And then your microphone setups, which we've been doing the Rode mics that we got. And we use the Kaio Pro Razer webcam, but we're using just our regular webcams built in here, so it doesn't have to be fancy. But because everything's being done on their servers online, other than Pittsburgh having a storm and us not him dropping, or all of a sudden my internet would drop, but the stream's still going as long as one of us is there. Yeah. So we just thought it's going to save us so much time, right? Because not only, so I'm a 6th grade math and science teacher, I'm president of our organization PACT, and I'm one of the co-hosts of the podcast. So it just was like, we needed to make sure we can get this done as easy as possible, if that makes sense.
You can run the presets through Stream Deck and just click through that way too if you want for your highlights.
Yeah, if you want to get fancy, Stream Deck makes their little box on the side that you could touch it instead of it doing it on the screen. So that's another option as well. Good point, Dom. Now, Nikki, when you guys were deciding about the Vivacity, Tech Unrec?
Yep,
Tech Unrec. When you were looking at creating your podcast, what things did you think about?
Yeah, so our company is based out in Minnesota, in St. Paul. And so what happened was we had acquired a company in Chicago. They had a podcast, and their podcast was called Tech Unrec. So when we acquired that company, we decided to move forward with that podcast and continue with it. In doing so, we kind of changed the way that looked to kind of fit the format and the vision of what Vivacity Tech is. So the platform that we use is called Riverside. And the reason why is because we use a production company that kind of helps supports us. They do all of our editing on the back end. And so initially we were using Zoom, but there was a lot of feedback in terms of editing on their end, the production side end. It was getting a little messy. So they asked us to kind of move into their platform, and all of our recording happens there.
Yes.
Question, someone online would like to know what type of webcam.
So I started off using this, and I don't even know how old it is, just a HD 1080p Logitech. I think it's like the C920. I've used they have a C270, that's like $30. When you're watching it, you look really clear, but when you're processing it, sometimes it'll pixelate in general. So we didn't spend $600-700 on a DSLR. Our setup was, the one we personally use is a Kaio Pro Razer, and it was deemed one that was really good for stream, but it's very basic level, $99 through Razer, and then our microphones were $99. Devices we already had, you pay for your internet. You can hardwire in. Right now, Nikki's wireless, I'm hardwired, and as far as looking up there, it kind of looks the same. Yeah. So yeah, great question. Yep.
I'm wireless, and I'm looking at hardwire later this week.
Okay.
She said she's looking for StreamYard guest. Is that the one?
Yeah. If you look at StreamYard.com, and then, so the free, we have the pay version, but the free version, their logo is a mallard duck, so that's just going to be on your stream. We used that for about a year, and we were fine with it. Then we finally switched it to have just our branding a little bit more on it. All right, and you get if you're doing this in the classroom, you're going to have 1 or 2 people on, you're fine. With the paid version, we can get 10 people in one room on the same screen streaming together. All right. So that's kind of the back end stuff, and as we're doing, you'll watch me. I will be live producing, or Dom will be live producing as we go. So just to identify what's on the screen here. So again, this is our active window. This was the Riverside. When we're going, we'll look at the back end with here, and Nikki will walk us through that a little bit shortly. Let me get rid of that. Oop, wrong one. All right. So if you look over here on this second column here, it just has your different, your brand colors. So you can pick whatever you want, whether it's your school colors, whether it's personal. We went with green. You could change the style that your naming's going to be on the screen for when you're showing it. We have our logos. This was the one that when you have the free version, that's what you have. I really felt it wasn't like this pain that we had to get rid of. It by no means. We went with our personal logo, and then we just sometimes we'll go with the translucent. We have another program we run. We do a KTI summit where 100 teachers from across Pennsylvania come in for a week-long ed tech training. So that's our KTI. And of course, Dom added his, he added his M&Ms today. Yep, he's very proud of himself. And then there's also overlays that you can add, and it tells you it's a 1280 by 720. How many of you are using Canva? Right? It is unbelievable what we could do for free, right? All the backgrounds, all the overlays, all the video, all the images we use are all Canva created. And then you just import it into StreamYard. So you can have your kids making backgrounds. You can have your kids making different transitions, the little videos. I mean, Canva is amazing in what it does. So we have our overlays. We have our different loop videos that play. And then the different backgrounds that we'll put up. So right now you can't see it because we're full across the board. If we were
One nice
here.
thing, if I can interrupt real quick, Eric.
Yeah.
If you can't get everyone in the same room at the same time live, what you can do is create your videos in Canva, import them, and pull them up and run them as if it was a live show. So you have created content previously and pull that in and run it live as needed. So in a classroom setting, especially if you're working across class periods, you can work from that standpoint, and Canva is easy to import.
Great point as always,
Yeah.
Dom.
And that's kind of what we do. We
What
don't do
froze?
go live at Vivacity Tech. We record, and then probably the following month is when that podcast episode will launch.
Yep. So think of it this way. When Dom said that, that was a great point. StreamYard is your production studio. Right now, we're streaming live. You may not do that in your classroom, but when you stream live, we are right now live on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter. You can add Instagram if you want. Any guest that comes in, they can click and they can add their socials that it's going out. So in the classroom, you're probably not going to do that as much, right? You can have your pre-recorded videos. You could pull everything in. Then you can have the kids live produce it. When I went into the room and set the studio up like 2 weeks ago, I said, we're going to do a live recording. It's going to happen in 2 weeks. Of course, there was the lovely mess up of Eastern time versus Mountain time. Don't get me started about how fun my calendar's been to adjust. All my times are off. But I had to go through, and then what's nice is it'll automatically kick out to YouTube, an upcoming little setup. It'll send out to Facebook, upcoming LinkedIn. Twitter will have a thing on our Twitter Twitter account. So all of that stuff goes out, and it has the countdown. So it makes people know, hey, this is coming up. And then when you go live at the beginning, up in this corner, I clicked on the button that said go live, and the check mark is showing you that all of our social media channels are live. If I would have I want to do a pre-recorded show When I open up the room and I click, it'll start recording. So you could be producing with your kids in the room. You could pause it when they're like, if they're, you know, in front of the computer, they're out of the computer. If you have the pre-recorded videos, like Dom said, I could pull those in as the kids are there, and it looks like it's all being done in real time, other than maybe the backgrounds being different. So there's some ways you can really mess with it then. But again, like the big thing with OBS, you know, pushing this stuff out, getting stuff sent out, us taking time, right? Teachers, what time do we have? This is giving me, it's automatically posting live to all those channels. I could download a video file. I could download an audio file, all right from the app, and I could push it out. So we do an audio feed on Spotify, Apple Music. We go through Spotify and it kicks it out to like 9 different groups. Anything to add there, Dom?
No, I think, I don't know if I'm frozen on your end. I'm frozen on my end.
Yeah, you're frozen. It's all right. It's a good look for you, though. You're fine.
Got that worst picture stuck up there.
Oh, yeah, Dom, you're not. So the I'll make a joke. The people that are watching us through ISTE stream have my dream. They can't hear you. But so when you talk, I got to summarize what you're saying. So right now he just says he looks very good in his frozen shot. But I'll make sure I summarize. He brought up the fact about the video. So, nope.
Is StreamYard inside Riverside?
So they're 2 different companies, and that's why we kind of have Nikki here. This is something separate that could be done, and then where we have this video package and all-in-one deal. Good question. Yes, ma'am.
Do you have like a slide screen that like lists all these resources that you're mentioning right now?
Yep. So there will be, on the thing, we'll have our Canva slide deck with some links, and then we also have the old school wiki. Dom, are you able to put that up on the screen?
Yeah. Give me a second.
Yep. It wasn't sharing. So we do have a wiki that has the information we talk about, even the stuff that we've bought.
Margaret wants to know if there's a different mic you can try so they can't hear down.
Well, he's in Pittsburgh, so no, unfortunately. Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to catch whatever the room, but it is piping through, so the sound people didn't show up, so I do apologize. But if you click on one of our social media handles, you'll be able to hear what Dom said in the live feed. All right, so this is our wiki. Go ahead and share about the wiki, Dom.
Okay, so on the wiki, I went old school with this because Canva wasn't as updated as it is now, but there's a lot you can do. I have to update some of this. We started out with Google Docs on the back end. It was free. We went to Notion, and then we moved on to Microsoft Loop as behind the scenes our planning. Eric and I will plan using Loop, and then we take our questions and stuff. When we have a guest such as Nikki, we will send out an email to her with, and I'm hollering, I don't know if that makes any difference or not, if it's just being annoying. But we'll send out an email with, here's what we want to do. And with Nikki, we had a couple Zoom meetings. Other times we just meet a little bit ahead of time with our guests to come in, and we'll zip through what we want to do with the show. But Eric and I plan out with Loop. I have to change that because right now it has Notion. But we moved from Notion because we kept maxing out the number of blocks we were allowed to have, and it was starting to cost us money. So Loop is free. Back-end communication, we'll use Slack, email, text. Sometimes we'll get on Zoom or Google Meet. And then we put, like Eric said, we push everything out through social media. We promote through social media. PACT has a weekly email blast, and we have the calendar on our website. We'll push things out through our social media links to get the word out there. We do have, especially in the summertime, we'll have more views after the show than we do during the show because it's summer and people are out and being busy. But we do use StreamYard, and Eric talked about this. The beauty of StreamYard is it is easy.
Here, hold
to
on
do.
1 second, Dom, because I have to summarize all that for the people that are streaming on ISTE real quick. So we use the old school wiki. Talk about he's got that set up. We list our different information that the tech tools that we use. We'll put different links in. Dom will create a wiki afterwards, and we'll push that out so people can click on that. Anything that we talked about, because we've broken up our pod into, we'll talk about tech notes, and that's like a little mini PD. This is the app. Here's how we're using it in the classroom. Here's how people we know are using it in the classroom, and we'll break it down. We'll talk about tech news, different companies that are acquiring others, that anything that's going to like have an effect on us in the classroom, like when Canva bought when Canva bought Affinity, because Affinity Designer is really cool. Now Canva bought them. Now they're going to be merging. So we shared about that, talked about that for a little bit. And then we've used, we use Microsoft Loop. He gives me a hard time. I'm a Microsoft guy. He's an Apple guy. But we were using, why am I blanking on it?
Google
You said
Docs,
it.
and then we went to Notion.
Oh, look at that. Everybody give her right here. Our unofficial tech support rocking it. So we were trying to use Notion, and they have a block limit for free, and nobody at Notion could tell us why our blocks were being used up. We were deleting stuff like crazy. So we got to the point where it was time to pay, and we were like, yeah, no. So we went over to Microsoft Loop because it's free. So that's what we're using there. We tried using Google Docs. It just it was just getting so, we've been doing this for almost 3 years now. So 2 shows every month. So there's a lot of notes, a lot of different things. It was just cluttering up. So Loop's just a little bit more organized for us.
No, I'll use Google Docs for my classroom. I have a general template that I copy from week to week for my own podcast I do for my students. But then when working with the kids, since we're a Google school district, I use that, and I'll share, and I'll have the kids share those documents when they're doing presentations, so they can see if they're doing research or whatever. They can all edit, and then I can make comments as needed as I oversee what they're doing. And I work more as a producer on those.
And so it is. So I started. They probably still can't hear there. In his classroom, because they don't use that. They use some different things in his classroom. One cool thing. So because we're live in all these different places. If you see on the bottom corner, somebody named David Steckler, he said, how cool is it that I could see this on LinkedIn? So he's watching on LinkedIn. So again, when you're streaming and when you're pushing it out through your classroom, it's going to whatever social media handles. And when people comment, you can see it in the comment section. And you can put it on the screen.
Whether it's pushed out or not.
Right, you control what you push out. Right. Yeah, we'll get to that. That is upcoming. No, you're right. That's okay. Dom will jump in and do a good bit there. So just to show you, for instance, when
this is our Wakelet.
All right. Yeah, he's just showing the Wakelet on the screen right now.
So as we talk, and I have to go back through it and push some more of these out. I'm a little bit behind. But for people that are listening, they're not going to have access to all of the links and tools we talked about. We put them into a Wakelet and embed this into the description of our video and our podcast, so they have access to what we're talking about, and they can go back and look at on their own.
And then we'll also push it out on YouTube or put the links on YouTube. So he's just, for the people that are watching ISTE live, we use the Wakelet to kind of share that information out. So just to give you a couple things in the back end you're producing, you got banners, so you can welcome people to your show. You could do a ticker on the bottom. We could tell them to follow us, thanking different, we are the Facebook page. So you can add on the fly. If your kids are going to be talking about different tools, you can create a banner at the bottom. And you can, whatever you type, hello, ISTE, Denver. And you can say, do I want it to scroll or do I want it to be stationary? So I'm just going to click add banner. And then when I click it, whatever you type will show up in the bottom corner. So as the program's going, if somebody says something that's really good, I might type it in real quick, put it up on the screen. I'll get website links, things ahead of time. I'll preload those so I can show those when we're talking about it. Because again, our tech notes are about different programs. Here's where you go to find the resources that I chatted about. And then your different branding. So what we're going to do real quick, if you humor us, we're going to kick the PACT pod live officially, because then we'll use this for our little bit and then just show you how we have our videos. So Dom and I usually come on and we jokingly call it jolly banter. All right. And as we just talk back and forth, usually it's, again, I'm a rare Dolphins fan living in Pennsylvania, but I'm living in Pennsylvania in the heart of Ravens country. So explain that one. But then the Eagles nearby, Dom's a Steelers fan. So we'll joke about that. We'll talk about different things, just like you said, random stuff at the beginning. We'll say hi. There's a couple teachers that tell us that they listen to us while they're dog walking. We always make sure to say hi to them. And then we'll just kind of go and I'll usually say, you know what, Dom, you're here, I'm here, Nikki's here. I think it's time for
the PACT pod.
All right, let's roll it. And then we would kick off and say, welcome to the PACT Pod, episode 57, ISTE Live, the Mile High Edition. And then we have all of our, just that's the official kickoff. And then we'll introduce, Dom's going in and out right now. I'm not sure what's going on there. So we'll kick him back on stage. All right. Having some technical.
So I'm going to jump to.
All right. So some internet issues there. Oh, there he is. So, and again, like I said, we'll kind of go through. We have our Microsoft Loop, and I don't have it up on the screen right now, but it literally has, here's the intro. What are we going to talk about first? What are we going to break down? And through doing different sessions as far as like technology, just, working on really breaking it down for teachers to be able to watch kind of the how-tos to use it. So kind of jumping into the classroom aspect of it. This year, my project at school was trying to incorporate podcasting more into my math classroom, 6th grade math classroom. And I said I wanted to make it where the students are doing a really good job of taking ownership of what they're learning and then teaching others through the podcast. So every week, if somebody had an idea that they wanted to share, now for our purposes, we used Soundtrap for education. So we have Chromebooks in our district, so the kids were able to record little sound bites and share those with me. So that's a great feature. They're a great organization to see them down here in the hall if you want to talk to them about that. I think there's a link that Don might have that gives you 6 months free to the
90
education.
90 days free.
90 days?
Yeah, it is nice. I use that for my school podcast because I just do audio, and it's nice. It's easy to work with. You can share things out. You have control over what the kids do if you want to give the kids codes. It's easy to create. I'll have my daughter used it in her school. Our school uses it also for their music classes, digital music and such. You can go in and create music. I'm not good on that end. I do the podcasting, which some people say I'm not good at that either, but that's okay. It's always good to show the kids you're allowed to make mistakes. That's the one nice thing about doing this live. My camera froze. It happens. Model for the kids that everything doesn't have to be perfect for you to be out there. And I think that's a big lesson for them to learn and even with teachers, so many teachers are afraid to do things unless it's totally perfect because they don't want to show errors. But you have to show that that's just part of life. So you can go in, I'll use, those tools. I'll record stuff, I'll push it up, and then I use Podbean for my personal podcast, only because Spotify for podcasters wasn't around whenever I started it, and I didn't feel like downloading all my episodes from Podbean and pushing them back out to Spotify. At the time, it was Anchor.fm. So I pay for Podbean. I have my school podcast there, then I have a personal podcast that I put out sporadically, usually ranting and raving about the Steelers or something that annoys me. They change, a flavor of ice cream that I like at the local ice cream shop, and I'll put that on Anchor FM. I see Eric's enthralled with my discussion.
All right, hold on. We got a question, Dom. Hold up. Yes?
Okay.
So Don mentioned he does the audios on his podcast. My question is for this StreamYard, this platform, if someone's more comfortable with just doing an audio as an audio file, can that still be uploaded and added to like a basic image to let us know that that person is speaking when it's
Yep. Yeah, so we took a screenshot of Dom right now, and if I go back to the branding page, I can upload that as a background, right? So if we if I just said I'm going to make this when you came in, you had this as the background, and let me bring us back onto the stage here. And then their audio file down here, there's background music would be an audio file you can pull in. And then so if I was and then you would just play, and then you can adjust, and that would be them talking and sharing. Again, so Dom's use of, I think you started using Podbean before we even looked at using.
Yeah, I've had Podbean for years.
Yep. And then, so he has those, now he's using the Soundtrap to record it, then blending it together, putting it in. If you're an Apple school district, you got GarageBand, you got your different tracks that you can make. Again, we're a Chromebook, so we're using the Soundtrap for Education. If you're Windows PC based, Audacity, it's still amazing that that's still free. And then you, and WeVideo. Okay, so write that down. WeVideo is another good one.
Yeah, so
All right.
like with Soundtrap, I'll record, I can do the editing if I need to, pull it down, then I upload it to Podbean. And then Podbean will send it out to several places, much like Spotify does. And then from here, I could download audio only, or I could pull the video, and then I could also pull into either, Soundtrap. I could go through and edit, and because Soundtrap allows you to edit, you can do a transcript. So I can go through instead of listening and trying to cut out sections, because we'll talk about this a little bit later, but just to make sure. We break our podcast down, so we have like the hour and 15 minutes sometimes. We'll break those into segments. And Soundtrap allows me to go in and pull those audio files out easier than just trying to work through GarageBand or anything else, because I can see the transcript and I know where to cut. And then push those back out into Spotify as little shorts or segments.
Yep. And then another technique would be just within StreamYard, you can have the kid turn the camera off, and then you could push them to move it so that their picture's in the bottom corner and you're sharing something else on the screen. So this is hold on. That layout's not working if you don't have anything sharing. But you can make it so they're in the bottom corner and then they're talking and it's still coming over on the StreamYard and you're recording it all in that one space. Again, if you're using this fully as the remote production piece, you want to stick with that. Now let's go back to Riverside.
Yep. So when we do our podcast, they're roughly about 20 minutes. The way that they work is that we meet our guest first. We, on a virtual call, kind of come up together with what that topic is going to be for the podcast. We have a second meeting where we go over the questions that were created for the podcast. And then on that call, we decide on the day that we're going to schedule for the podcast episode. Our audience is mostly teachers or people in the education space. So we're not trying to target students, but the reason why our podcasts are about 20 minutes is because what we have found is that most of our listeners are listening in the car. So we give them just enough time to get in the car, turn on our podcast, get to their destination, and then our podcast is just wrapping up at that time. But in Riverside, we provide a link, kind of like Zoom, when we're doing that recording of the episode. Our raw footage is somewhere about 30 minutes in length, but then again, we have that production company that kind of edits it out for us. There's some back and forth between that production company and our marketing team in terms of the editing. And then our launch date is always around the 15th of every month.
So a lot of different avenues for that. To me, again, with the Chromebooks, I have them do just the Soundtrap and then pull it in. But ideally, the best thing would be just to have them do everything in a recorded session in StreamYard. You have it all housed in one spot. You don't necessarily even have to push stuff out to socials, because you could download it, put your file into a Google Drive, and then embed it into a Google site you're using in your classroom. So it's not leaving your classroom walls. All the kids in school can see it. Maybe you would share with the families or whatever, but you'd be able to have that access too if you're worried about security. So again, I look at what we've done with StreamYard, and it is a very versatile Swiss Army knife of tools that you're able to use. There are the other things like WeVideo, and they have a free tier and a paid tier. Again, even Soundtrap, there's a free tier, paid tier. So a lot of that rolls in, but what you could do for free with StreamYard is not as good as like a Canva, but it has a lot of good features.
You have to cue the background to add other images and things in, like the animated video and some of the other ones?
No, you're manually controlling it. Okay. Yeah, there's no timers for that.
Well, even like a green screen effect for that.
Yeah. You could do each individual person can do a green screen on their background. But what you're putting in the background and changing is what you're controlling, what you have uploaded. Does that make sense? Yes. I confused the question at first. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Quick question about Soundtrap.
Yeah.
We're in New York State, we require obviously
No, I've not run into anything. I can't say, like, speak, vouch, and say I'm putting my life on the line with this, but we haven't had anything. And again, they have, a lot of times you're COPA compliant when you can sign in with Google. A lot of that does, it's not perfect, but that does allow you that concept. So again, with 6th grade, I've been fine doing it. Yeah, that's a great question. And up in the corner, ma'am, did we answer some of your questions about the classroom use? I know, yeah? All right. Any other questions? We're at that about, is it just 9:35? That was a little later. All right, we got some time.
Yeah.
All right. So just to go over a couple other features here. Like I said, we showed the video. We've made transitions for different things, like if there's a guest. All pulled in with Canva. When that's live, you pull the people up, then you kick it live. If we're doing like our tech notes.
Now, when those transitions are playing, you're muted on the microphone. And the one nice thing is also, like, we'll pull our guests in early whenever we have guests on the show, and we'll run just a microphone check, see how everything's
Sound
working.
checks.
Sound checks, we push them into the background. They can hear everything that's going on with us, but we can't hear them. But you have the private chat on the side where, I don't know if you can see it on Eric's screen, but we can communicate with each other, but the audience doesn't see it. So if someone has an issue, if there's questions going on, you can still communicate as opposed to have to sit here with a phone and text back and forth like you do on some platforms where it's, Eric's in Central PA, I'm in Pittsburgh, we have guests in Erie or in some cases across the nation, and you're trying to run a text stream, group text to keep in touch with things. Everything's right here on the screen in the background so you can communicate while your show's going live.
On the screen, you can see here in the top left-hand corner, it tells you how long the stream's been going. I always know when I hit like past 45 minutes, my wife will be like, yeah, that was too long, honey. You got to cut that down. But again, Dom and I, we jokingly said that, they wouldn't allow us to call it two paisanos and microphones because, but we tend to get long-winded with the Italianisms. You can't see who's watching, but you can get your stats and see if anybody's watching on Twitter, X, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook. You have all those feeds there. And then you can see if anybody's liked it, so they've hit like. So you get live stats here. That doesn't adjust when people are watching it down the road. But again, when we end this session, this video will be on Facebook. It'll be on Twitter when you go into our stream. It'll be on the LinkedIn page until we would go in there and delete it. So you can always go back and look at those things. And again, like I said, I like the use of, you download that video and put them onto a Google site and just keep adding those throughout the year. And that was the plan, even with the audio files, to do that with my math classroom. We got so close, then that lovely thing called focus on testing. So we didn't get fully finished. So the goal is next year to finish up with getting all those sound files. And they got really excited. And what the cool thing is, what I didn't expect to see, right? I thought to see some showboats, some of the hams come forward kind of a deal. But what was really cool is the questioning during class became deeper. It just became deeper because they wanted to make sure they knew the content because they wanted to do their little sound trap and be on the podcast, on the class podcast. So when we're doing our rotations, my station, they're talking, they're asking the different questions, and when they're moving on to the next thing, they're like still making sure and they're asking other questions, but it was related to what they wanted to present on, which was really cool. So it was just like that, it gave them that just that desire to make sure they really understood it, more thorough than I was really expecting it, for them to be able to share it, to become the master of that content with the kids when they're sharing it online. So then the eventual goal would be to share it with, different classes and kind of go back and forth. And here's, we learned this and just sharing the different ways they learned about it and what they took from it. So we talked a little bit about doing some of the editing. Do you want to? Well, let's put the Riverside screen on. And if you switch to the Riverside screen on the tab on your device, what you do then we'll see.
Did I do that correctly?
Yeah, so if you scroll, yep, so we see what you're doing. So if you want to show us about the different features or where you would go for things. Because again, we're talking about StreamYard, but Riverside's another one that's pretty cool. So, all right, go ahead, Nikki.
Yeah, so essentially, once we schedule that date for the podcast, we create like a placeholder on the calendar for our guest. And then the day of the pod, we'll come in here and go into studio. Let's see what happens when I click on this. But essentially, what Go into Studio will allow is for us to create a link. Okay. How's the feed? It'll allow us to create a link to be able to push out to our guest, and then they enter via that link here. I'm going to see if this works. Essentially, this platform, it really looks no different than any virtual site, so a Google Meet or a Zoom, but our guests will essentially be in a waiting room, which will then allow them to enter, and we just have conversation back and forth. Now, we've talked about being able to provide some type of visual, so a video for our audience. But like I mentioned, we've polled our audience, and a lot of our audience members are listening to us while they're driving to school. Our podcast is about providing a lot of tips and tricks about educational tech in the classroom and really kind of celebrating teachers or really anyone in the tech space with all the things that they're doing with technology. So when they enter, we usually go over the questions just one more time. We have them introduce themselves, and we use that as part of our introduction. I think one of the cool things about our podcast is that with our company, it very much is a team production in that we have someone that does the intro in our company. We have someone that records all of the commercials. We have the podcast going on. But let's see here. I'm just going to join in. Please enter a name and show you what this looks like. All right. So the person that would be our guest would be on the opposite side here. They have the ability, as do we, to share out. So when we're having conversation, if they mention any links, if they're talking about like their school website or things that they're doing, at the end of our pod, we collect that information and we post it for our audience to be able to access if they were to come to the website where our podcasts are living. But all of the features that you're seeing on the bottom here, the sharing, the speaker, they have access to those items as well. But like I said, it looks very similar to any virtual platform and what it allows. Not nearly as fancy as what you were seeing over here, because again, ours is mostly just audio, not visual. Any questions?
For both platforms, are there specific files that have to be uploaded, or is it any file type for audio?
So when you look at like background, when you hover over the question, it gives you, so it's saying the recommended size, and file types, PNG, JPEGs, GIFs, MP4, for your background, because you can have an animated background in StreamYard. I didn't say that one, that's relatively new. As far as audio files, this one was a little bit more of a pain, making sure it's an MP3, because a lot of times you're putting out different styles and formats, but try to make sure that you are getting it in that file. That would be for that side. What about?
Yeah, so for the Riverside, again, we just focus on the audio side of things. So any audio file will work just fine when we're going to embed it and upload it onto our platform.
MP4 only. Yep. That was just something. I skipped that. Just went back up, so up on the screen. And it's a 10-minute max, 200 megabit file size. As of right now. But the cool thing is the company, like after every stream, they give you a thing, what did you think? Thumbs up, thumbs down, what could we do better? And they have changed some things based on it. One thing that I always, in our comments, when people post live, we get the comment section here. Here's what everybody's posted on Facebook and LinkedIn. If Dom shows the comment live, it won't show as it was shown on mine. Then I'll still see the number of how many comments, how many there are. And a couple times I click it, and he'll send me a private chat. I already showed that one. So now I just like him to keep the social and put them up, and I don't deal with that so much.
But again,
go ahead, Dom. About the audio and video, I was making a mistake. I was downloading both the audio and the video files and then pushing both out to Spotify. And Spotify was pushing out both feeds. I put like audio only after the audio version, and the video version was there because Spotify shows video. But Amazon Music, Apple Music, iHeartRadio only do audio. So they were actually pushing out two versions. So I think when we made the decision, we were talking after we caught it,
Yeah.
that we're just going to leave the video feed on the socials and on YouTube, and we're going to just push audio through Spotify moving forward, and that'll push it out to all the other different feeds we have.
Yep. So those people on ISTE Live, what he was saying is, we just had an issue where we were pushing out the video and the audio file, and in Spotify, but yet it was only showing up as audio for both for some reason. It had a little symbol saying it was video, so we've just decided our video is going to be on the Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. We're going to push out the Spotify audio file only and have that be the area for that. So that was just a decision we had to come up with. The other thing is, there's a lot of different things out there. There's about 54 podcasting sessions this week, so feel free to check out more. There's a guy down in the concourse, and I follow him on social, but his podcast is called EdTech Bites. Gabriel, he's down there. You can even just go and chat with him, so he's a great source too. And then the final thing I'll say is, if you go to experiment this year with podcasting, or if you've been doing it a while, and you want to come on our podcast to talk about it, at the one site we had, when we put it up, you have our socials, you have our email address on the site. Reach out to us. Right? We'd love to hear from you. Bottom line is, the show's about educators. We say it's by educators for educators. The organization PACT is one that's behind it, but we're global in our reach and what we do. So we want to make sure we're doing the best for kids. And if you're doing something really cool and you're in California, people in Pennsylvania and all throughout want to hear about it. So feel free to reach out and then come on. Again, going live, it's just, working through that process. It's interesting, it's unique, it's fun. It gets you out of your comfort zone a little bit, but we'd be more than happy to have anybody on.
Yeah, and if I could do a plug too, I feel the same way about our podcast. Our company, if you're not familiar, we're at booth 1512, but Vivacity Tech is very vivacious in the people that they hire and the things that we do. And so that's really where the vision of our podcast came to be. We really wanted to celebrate what was happening in schools, because sometimes it can be very isolating, especially for teachers in the classroom. So celebrating the brilliance of technology that students are partaking in, or teachers, admin. So if you're interested and there's something you want to celebrate in your school or district, let us know. We'd love to have you on as a guest.
And just as a disclaimer, we have no partnership agreement or anything. I thought they're starting a podcast. Every time we see them at a trade show, their group is just awesome to hang out with and chat with and talk with. So I thought, you guys are starting a podcast. Why don't you come on and do this with us? And it's the first time we've done it like this, and then Dom being in Pittsburgh. So hopefully it translated well for you in the presentation, like I said. So, but again, even though we're going on 3 years of having it, 57 episodes twice a month, there's still things we're learning every day. That Spotify thing, that glitch has been there for several months before we finally realized that was going on. And that's how it's going to be in the classroom. It's that letting go piece, but just letting the kids take over. But again, even though we weren't able to get a lot of things pushed out live this year, it was just attempt number one. The benefits that I saw with the kids, just that they just got this desire to really dig deeper to get the content, was something I wasn't expecting. So it's pretty cool. So I would encourage you to stop analyzing and dive in, right? Go feet first and just give it a whirl, right? And your kids are going to let you know what's working, what's not working. So.
Yeah. We have some codes up on the screen. StreamYard and Soundtrap. Soundtrap gives you access 3 months for the premium Soundtrap. StreamYard, there's a So Eric knows more about the StreamYard code. You can talk about that. But Soundtrap, 3 months of premium. That gives you, and use that link and go to ISTE24 would be the code you type in. And there's some information about PACT. Go to PACT.org. That's where you will find our calendar with our podcasts and events going on for PACT. We are a nonprofit organization. Educational stakeholders are welcome. And there's more information at PACT.org. And I'm going to pull everyone back in because
Back on?
Oh,
Oh, you couldn't hear me because I was backstage. Put the code stream back on.
okay. We get there.
There you go. All right, got that? Yeah, I was like, oh, that's right, I'm not full screen. I'm used to, when we're doing it, what everybody else is seeing is full screen because they don't see everything in the back end, so I apologize for having that tiny there for that little bit. All right, so is everybody good? Any other questions? If you want stickers, we got stickers here. But you can come on up with more questions. So, all right, thank you so much for watching the PACT pod, and we'll catch you in 2 weeks back in Pennsylvania. All right, take care.
First
Bye,
and
everybody.
third.
Oh, my God.